Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for August 3rd through 9th. This week I read one book, I watched 2 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 2 books. The one book I managed to complete with my eyeballs this week was The Mermaid of Black Conch. This one is set on a Caribbean island that doesn't exactly exist, but when I put it on my spreadsheet I put it under Trinidad and Tobago because the author is Trinidadian born. This one is set in the 70s and follows this man who's also writing a diary entry in kind of the late 2010s. And it's talking about the situation in which he met a mermaid and then eventually some Americans were down fishing and they caught this mermaid, and then he figured she shouldn't be caught by people and he kind of cut her down and took her to his house and was going to re-release her, and then all of a sudden she started changing back into a woman. My feelings on this one are really complex because I enjoyed eventually getting to know what the story was going to be, and I enjoyed the style in which some of it was written. However, the writing also went on and on and on about certain things that I was like, why are we focusing so heavily on this? Or why is this event taking so long? You could just say, and they were fishing for 6 hours and it took a really long time to get this mermaid out of the water. Obviously you don't need to say it that briefly, but it also doesn't need 30 pages. This book is also written in dialect, which I completely even forgot when I was reading it. So when I sent a picture of this beautiful drink I was drinking with my open book next to it, and my partner went, hey, what is this word trying to mean? Because it's a word that we use, but it's being used as a dialect in it. And then he was like, wait, there's a bunch of words like that. I'm like, oh yeah, this is written in dialect. And then had to explain. This book was also way hornier than I expected and talked about certain anatomy of certain types of people way too much. By the end of the second chapter, I'd already written notes of like, what are men and why are even? Ultimately, I ended up enjoying this one, but it took me a really long time to get through, which considering the length of it, it is pretty short. Pretty much means that I was slogging through it. On to what I watched this week. I finished the 20th season and got about halfway through the 21st season of Silent Witness. We have a title sequence update. That hasn't happened in a very long time. The title sequence had been pretty much the same for the past 15 years with the exception of changing out actors' names when appropriate, and there was one time where they changed the font, and yes, I noticed. But now we have a title sequence that looks more like it was made in the 21st century. We also obviously have Nikki dealing with some PTSD because if you know how the 20th season ends, it's pretty traumatic. We also have other characters around that and their feelings, and it's really nice to actually see all of that kind of situation. As much as it makes me feel evil to say that, because obviously I'm enjoying the pain of others, but I think you know what I mean? It's not as weird as it felt coming out of my mouth. The other show I watched was the first 2 episodes of Delicious in Dungeon because my roommate put it on because she was like, hey, it's Dungeons and Dragons and food, and I like both those things. And yes, it is an anime that is basically those 2 things, and it's kind of delightful even though you're sitting there going, you have a mission you're on and it's apparently time sensitive, but you keep stopping every 2 seconds to find something in the dungeon to eat, which is a little bit much, but also kind of fun. I had kind of the impression of it where it felt a lot like an episode of Magic School Bus, except for what I'm learning has nothing to do with our world. So it's like, oh yeah, to prepare this thing you need to do these different steps. I'm like, great, that thing doesn't exist in our world, and if it did I wouldn't be eating it because I don't eat meat, so this is ultimately not helpful for me, but I'm glad that most of you are enjoying your experience. As for the movies we watched this week, they are connected, so I will just talk about them together. That was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and Jurassic World Dominion. These are the 5th and 6th movies in the Jurassic franchise overall. So in 4 there was actually a park. In 5 it was like, oh, there's not a park anymore because we remember what happened in 4, but there's still dinosaurs and that's a whole thing. And oh look, some people want the dinosaurs because capitalism and power and all of that stuff. And then in the 6th movie we get the whole gang back together. We get the original 3 from the original 3 movies. We've got the people from these movies. They're all in this movie, which was kind of fun actually. And believe it or not, there is a 7th movie which recently came out, which is why we were trying to mainline our way through these so we could get to that one because it is brand new and we'd like to see what it's about. I mean, we know what it's about. It's about hubris and people making really stupid mistakes because they think dinosaurs cool, we should keep those on Earth. It's not like they can hurt us in any way. In fact, I would not be surprised if somebody was like, well, we shouldn't keep them on Earth, but we should definitely keep them on the moon. Is that the plot of the next movie? Because if it is, On to the audiobooks I listened to this week, the first one being For Her Consideration, which is the first in the Out in Hollywood series. Now, in June, I read the third book in this series because they are companion novels in the romance genre, so I was kind of like, well, I know how every book is going to kind of end. People are going to get together. It's romance, it's easy. Which means when I'm reading a companion novel out of order, I don't feel that badly about that. But as it turns out, this book also would have fit for the plus-size main character prompt, which is what I was using On Her Terms for, as well as a book that starts with O, but like I already have that covered, so I could have just read this one. I didn't know that going into it. Oh my goodness, Ari said it over and over and over again. Why can't I remember the main character's name? We're gonna call the main character Nina. I'm not entirely certain I have that correct. I'm 90% sure that her last name was Rice, but I'm only like 20% sure that I have her first name right. Anyway, our main character in this one has an interesting job. She works for a PR company and she actually writes celebrities emails for them. So every time they attend an event and they need to send like a thank you email, she sends those emails in their tone. And she can do this because she's good at writing in other people's voices, because she originally came to Hollywood to be a screenwriter. That is still a dream that she would eventually like to pursue. Now one day she thinks she's in big trouble with her boss because one of their main clients is unhappy with her emails, and she is actually really terrified about this, one because she needs her job, and two because the woman in question is somebody she actually looks up to because she's out and queer in Hollywood, so she's always tried to pay a little bit more attention to what she does in these emails. And this woman is Ari Fox. Anyone who likes women likes this woman. So when they meet, she's like, I have to keep this professional, I have to keep this professional. So they kind of go off on a meeting together and kind of talk to each other so she can get her tone better for emails, but then as it turns out, they also become friends and they start doing these activities together, and it's delightful. Obviously, I knew these characters were going to get together because one, it's a romance, and two, I've read the third book in the series and we definitely know they're together in the third book. But I just kind of treated this as a prequel because we saw one of the characters from the third book in this and how she already had a crush on the main character in the third book, and that was just delightful. The other audiobook I listened to this week is also in a series, but it's the second in a series, and that's The Poisoner's Ring. I believe the title of this series is A Rip Through Time, but that's also the title of the first book, so I might be incorrect. And essentially this one is really fun because our main character is a 30-year-old Canadian woman who works for the RCMP, but when we meet her, she's actually in Edinburgh, Scotland because her grandmother's health is failing, and she's there to see her before she passes. However, in the first book, she goes down this random close, and out of nowhere, she's transported to about 100 years in the past, and she's in somebody else's body. As it turns out, the body she's using is that of a teenager who is kind of a jerk to the people in the household she works for, and she works for this guy named Dr. Gray, who is an undertaker. She kind of worms her way into working on that side of things instead of working in the house, and not to give too much away, but they end up solving mysteries together. What's really fun with this is you have somebody who is used to solving mysteries, but she doesn't have anything that she usually uses at her disposal. For example, they know that fingerprints are different, but that's not something you can use in court at this point. And obviously you can't DNA test things, and there's a lot of tests that she's used to that you cannot use in this time frame. And she's also constantly being like, oh, have you invented this yet? Is there a way to test for this yet? Do people know about this yet? And she's just constantly trying to figure out what she knows from the future she can use to figure out what's going on now. On top of trying to figure out why this situation occurred in the first place and why she's here in the first place and what's maybe happening. Is the person who owns this body and her body in the future and completely mucking it up? We have no idea. In this second volume, there's a bunch of people around town that seem to be poisoned, so they're figuring there might be a poison ring going on, which is when there's one poison but various different people using it for their own end. And this case comes a little bit close to home because one of the people that ends up dying is related to Dr. Gray, or at least related by marriage, which means his oldest sister is now a prime suspect. This is a really fun series. I read the first book just before it came out because I managed to get it as an advanced reader copy, and now I think there's like 4 books out, so I'm definitely behind, which is exactly how I usually roll, honestly. So now I'm going to have to wait until I actually have spots on my hold list to put the next one on hold so I can read that eventually, because I'm very into finding out what happens with these characters. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!